Hey, Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I want to give double honors unto the apostles and those of great millstone. Well, and this truth from I want to say peace, mercy, and blessings unto all the hopeful elect. The name of the Heavenly Father is Yahweh, and that means He exists, He is to be. The name of the Son is Yahushai, and that means He is the deliverer. We are the Hebrew Israelites. There's 12 tribes that consist of our nation. Today we're being called Black, Jamaican, Haitian, West Indian, Dominican, Cuban, Puerto Rican, Mexican, all right, Native American, Seminole, Indian, Latin, Hispanic. But we're those people that make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel. The self-proclaimed white man, he's not white, he's red. He is Esau, Edom, all right? I do me, according to Bible prophecy, Esau is the end of the world, all right? And Jacob is the beginning of it, that forward. And actually what we're looking at is this video from Future of Institute. It says, I've studied nuclear war for 15 years. All right, and I believe it goes on to say you should be worried. Okay, and this is a 23-minute video, but this is a very edifying 23-minute video. Okay, and yes, nuclear war is in the Bible. It's actually biblical. It's a huge part of Bible prophecy. All right, the third woe and the second coming. So I'm going to play this, bring out some precepts, and I pray that this brings some edification.
We are closer to nuclear Armageddon than we have ever been since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that is terrifying.
Should you run or should you hide when you see a mushroom cloud? Nobody really has a plan for the aftermath of a nuclear detonation.
There is nothing to do. There is no population protection planning because everyone will be dead.
If nuclear war comes, there aren't going to be enough bulldozers to scrape the bodies off the streets.
What if someone launches a nuclear weapon? I noticed the deputy director of Stratcom saying deterrence holds, but if it doesn't, everything unravels. The number one most shocking out of the gate, oh my God, is how fast it all unravels. And that's why it begins in the first fraction of a second, which is when United States' incredible satellite technology can first see the nuclear launch. It's a very specific set of satellites, which are called SBIRS, the space-based infrared system of satellites. This massive school bus-sized satellite, they are looking down at the launch pads of the nuclear-armed nations so that they know in the first fraction of a second when that missile launches. Wait, how do they?
And the scriptures calls them arrows. All right, these nuclear missiles, they're the modern-day arrows being shot from the bow or the silo. All right, and these things can cross continents into other countries or lands. All right, that's why it's called intercontinental. All right. It says intercontinental. What does intercontinental mean? Relating to or traveling between continents. Right. What does intercontinental ballistic missile mean? A ballistic missile with a range of over 3,400 miles, 5,500 kilometers. The submarine can carry up to 20 intercontinental ballistic missiles, and that's another aspect of it. All right, you also have missiles that can be launched from submarines. Right, which the submarines, they can get very, very close. Okay, so this is going to get pretty bad. Okay, and this is, one of the major warnings right behind, or right next to, I should say, the hour of temptation, the mark of the beast.
Wait, how do they know? These satellite sensors can measure the plume on the hot rocket exhaust.
That links up with Joel, right? The plume from the hot rocket exhaust, which let's go to that. Let's go to Joel 2, because it also talks about the missile defense system. This is Joel chapter 2 and 1. It reads, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. And that's what the men of the Lord have been doing for decades, years, you know, hitting the highways and hedges, putting up these videos, you know, calling on the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, breaking down the prophecies. That's blowing the trumpet in Zion, right? And I believe it says in Amos, shall the trumpet be blown and the people not be afraid? If people actually understand what the men of the Lord were saying and were able to connect the dots, then they would be afraid, all right? Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. People should be trembling. For the day of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai cometh, for it is nigh at hand. And that you can call that judgment day. You can call it doomsday, right? 2. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There had not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Okay, so let's slow this down. It says a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, right? And that reminds me of the scene from The Matrix, when Morpheus was showing Neo the real world. If you remember, it kind of looked like the world got nuked. All right, it looked pretty fucked up. All right, he said, "We don't know who struck first." Right? He told him that the sky was scorched. How was it scorched? Nuclear weaponry. Right? So that's how it's gonna look, man. You know, especially when the fathership come and they block out the constellations. But also you gotta think from the you know, the chain of reactions of the mushroom cloud, and it says a great people and a strong, there had not been ever the like, and that's not referring to actual humans or actual soldiers. It's actually talking about the nuclear missiles that these other nations are going to use. Neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations, right? Because this is going to be the war to end all wars. And there's a quote from Einstein. It says, I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. But we know what weapons World War III is going to be fought with. It's going to be fought with nuclear weaponry, nuclear missiles, nukes. Okay? And it says here, back in Joel 2:2, a great people and a strong. It's talking about the nukes, right? There's not been ever the like. Yeah, we're in a time to where, these nations, they're on edge, they're on alert, all right? And you have something called mutually assured destruction, right? So let's look at that. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, this is from the Decision Lab, mutually assured destruction. The basic idea, if mutually assured destruction sounds like a daunting concept, that's because it is. It is a military strategy used in wars or combat where if either side makes an attack, the destruction of both sides is ensured. As a result, in the situation a stalemate arises, peace is ensured through a guarantee that each side has the ability to destroy the other and will do so if necessary, right? So pretty much these other nations have different plans and operations, all right, underway, that if they're attacked, then they just gonna launch a nuke. Everybody gonna die. Okay, that's how fucking crazy Esau is, man. So yeah, after and also what backs this scripture up in Joel 2 is that when the Israelites get in the kingdom under Yahushua, King David, 144,000, the government body, they're gonna take the nation's weapons from them and destroy them, and nations shall not learn war anymore. So that links up with that quote from Einstein. But World War IV is going to be fought with sticks and stones, right? Really ain't going to be no more wars. Nation ain't going to learn war anymore. This will be the war to end all wars, right? Verse 3, a fire devoured before them, right? Meaning what? On impact, explosion. And behind them, a flame burning. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, right? So it's like a paradise. This is like a paradise if you're wicked. But if you're in the know, it says much wisdom and much grief, then you understand how oppressed you are here. For these fucking stupid ass peons that love this place, they think it's paradise, right? And behind them, a desolate wilderness, right? After they hit, the fire, explosion, impact, destroying wind eats away at everything. It's gonna make it a desolate wilderness. Yeah, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, going into the power and the might. All right, that's some powerful shit for you to have the ability to launch a missile. All right, across continents. Okay, and as horsemen, so shall they run. 5, like the noise of chariots on the top of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame that devoured the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. 6, before their face the people shall be much pain. All faces shall gather blackness. Yeah, people are going to literally be frozen in fear, you know, uh, shitting on themselves, you know, whatever, man. All right, because you can't outrun that, all right? And it's gonna come as a snare when people least expect it, you know. 7, they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. Mm-hmm. They shall march everyone on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. You know, the Mossad is gonna be in control of these nukes, man. Because really, the Mossad put the spirit on Esau to create this type of weaponry technology, so for the judgment. So he's gonna make sure they hit their target, right? Neither one shall thrust one another. They're not gonna be any dust. They're not gonna be bumping into each other. Once they get launched, that's it. They're gonna reach their target. All right. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. Which is what? That's another key, or I guess you could say clue, that that's not talking about a man, because you know men are immortal, and when the Israelites get in the kingdom, that's when we're gonna have immortality. So this is talking about nukes and different how you said um, I guess missile defense systems or satellites that they got. It's not gonna be enough. It's not gonna stop. All right, the onslaught from the other nations. Right. It says, neither shall one thrust another, they shall walk everyone on his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. All right, Golden Dome, whatever Esau got, none of that shit's gonna work. You know, Trump, let's just look at that. Oh wow, this is spirit. This is what this is 1 hour ago. All right, January 27th, 2026, 8:15 a.m. 1 year on Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system struggles for momentum as China pushes ahead. A year since its inception, the Crew Lord, all right, the Crew Lord's Golden Dome missile defense initiative has reportedly made minimal headway, hampered by technical disputes and concerns over space-based components. The Golden Dome program, which was established through an executive order last year, aimed to deploy a comprehensive homeland missile defense system by 2028. However, the initiative has been slow to utilize the $25 billion allocated last summer, with ongoing debates over space architecture. Reuters reported on Tuesday one factor behind the delay has been internal discussions over classified space-based systems that could potentially involve anti-satellite capabilities. These deliberations have sparked concerns about whether such weapons will be compatible with a defense missile shield, especially given the U.S. long-standing opposition to anti-satellite arms and its criticism of China for its 2007 anti-satellite missile tests. So there you go. It's been a year. They've made minimal progress. The scripture says that it's not going to work anyway. All right. 9, they shall run to and fro in the city. And they shall run upon the wall, they shall climb upon the houses, they shall enter the windows like a thief. They're talking about the nukes, them coming, all right, them entering in this atmosphere, people getting the alerts, alarms, people trying to hide, people just trying to off themselves, trying to escape, all right, them hitting on impact, destroying weight, just eating, destroying everything, fallout, right? The earth shall quake before them, because you got to think when all these missiles drop, it's going to cause a different chain of reactions. The mushroom cloud, earthquake, and that might result in a tsunami, the earth opening up, sinkholes, you know, just chaos. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their sign. It showed you that in the movie Matrix. You just see fucking devastation. That's all you see, you know. And the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai shall utter his voice before his army, right? For his camp is very great, for he is strong and executed his word. For the day of your Lord is great and terrible, and who can abide in it, right? So let's go back.
You see this launch, ICBM, this giant 60-foot tall missile. It's on a road mobile launcher, which itself is astonishing. We don't have road mobile launchers in America, by the way, but they do in Russia and North Korea. And the reason we don't have them is your average American doesn't want an ICBM driving by, but that's okay in North Korea. This thing is taken out into a dirt field and it's launched. The Sibbers sees it in less than a second, and there begins this absolute massive 5-alarm fire alert, literally. Most of
That's just going to cause the panic, all right? People are going to panic. It says men's heart fell in them for fear.
nuclear armed nations, like for example Russia, announce their ICBM launches to other countries. And this is true even during the Ukraine war, because no one wants to start a nuclear war by accident. People let others know. The exception to the rule is North Korea. North Korea does not announce its launches. So how do we know it's not a mistake? You have this satellite system in space, but it communicates with ground systems. That is why it is called a system of systems. And so the data that gets sent down to the Earth, that machine learning understands that the trajectory of this launch is going to send it over the sea, or the trajectory of this launch is sending it into space. Those first few...
Which goes into what? Esau, his missile defense system. Right? Which it says in Joel, if they fall upon the sword, they should not be wounded. Meaning they're not going to be able to stop what's coming. It's because it's the Lord's will.
Seconds are so critical, but also at the same time, there's absolutely no action to take except for counterattack if it's an actual launch. If you go deep into the Defense Department videos, they actually released some footage from the command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain. And it's remarkable because it's actual video footage. Looks like something out of the movies with it.
That goes to the scripture and wrath. The people, they're going to try to hide themselves in the deep underground military bases, the bunkers, the fallout shelters. And if you're just an average citizen working at Walgreens and shit, you don't got no chance to get up in there, man. Right? This is Revelation chapter 6 and verse 12. And I beheld when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And what's going to cause that? There's nukes. Right? And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And that links up with what Joel saw, what we just read in the book of Joel, right? 13. And the stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casted her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the stars here represent or are symbolic, talking about how the nukes are going to fall on the earth, right? At an arc, it just showed you the trajectory of the missile, right? 14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. And this right here is describing the mushroom cloud. Get a good visual of that. You can watch the show Fallout on Amazon Prime. And there's other things you can watch too, But it showed you the heavens being rolled together as a scroll. That's what the missiles hitting, different chain of reactions is going to cause. One of the most famous ones is the mushroom cloud, right? And the heaven departed as a scroll when it's rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, right? And that during the first flood, during the time of Noah, you know, you have something called the Pangea, where it looked like the different pieces, of the earth. You can put it together like a puzzle, because it said that the first flood broke up the earth, right? But here it says, in every mountain and island were moved out of their places. So these nukes, they're gonna do damage, man. New islands might pop up. All right, islands might get pushed this way, that way, continents, right? And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of mountains. Okay, and you better believe a lot of the elites, they're already gone out of here. The worst place for you to hide is in Babylon, right? And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So that exactly links up with Joel.
Looks like something out of the movies, with a giant IMAX type screen with maps of the world, and you can see launches going off. Satellites are being launched. Short-range ballistic missiles are launched. We have our eye on all the missiles in Ukraine, and we, the Defense Department, can see all of this. The SIPR satellites are focused on those launch pads that might launch an ICBM. It's amazing how fast the next big action happens. Within seconds, all the information lands at those 3 command centers. They have to notify the president. Oh my God, it just goes boom. There now will be a few minutes of verification, and they must get ready to brief the president. So the president gets told 5 or 6 minutes after launch. The entire system is also preparing for what must be a secondary confirmation, and that comes from the ground radar systems working to try and determine what the hell is going on. Can the U.S. president launch a nuclear war? Yes. The president has sole launch authority. He does not need to ask anyone, period, full stop. Really what it comes down to is one would hope one had a sane president who wouldn't make an unwise decision. Because
you don't. You have a cruel Lord. As the scripture says, I will give the Egyptians over into the hand of a cruel Lord. So that's the worst person you could give this damn power to.
The specifics of what a nuclear strike against Washington, D.C. would look like.
The city would be gone, and people 40 miles away in, Baltimore would have life-threatening burns from the heat wave. 300 square miles of buildings destroyed. Nearly everyone in this city is either dead or severely injured.
If the president has 6 minutes to decide, the head of the president's detail decides to move him to an underground command bunker called Raven Rock.
Raven Rock, like Area 51, remains one of the U.S. government's most classified installations.
Then you have a pause in that 6-minute window when the president needs to decide. Even though the football is with him, the clock is ticking, that window may be extended because Secret Service says, no, we're moving him. We're not keeping him in the underground bunker beneath the White House. There's a whole very significant concept during a nuclear strike, which is called continuity of government. You have to keep the government running. So if the president isn't going to go, someone has to in his place. Most presidents, they have other things to worry about besides a nuclear war, which everyone wants to believe will never happen. They are briefed before they take office about all of this, but they may or may not be paying attention. Think of all the things you have to hear about, and think about all the things that are perhaps more pressing. We've had decades of living with the first atomic bomb and now the thermonuclear bomb. Everyone wants to live under this idea that nuclear war will never happen. When all this began...
Nope. That's all part of the Most High's plan, really. Right?
First there was 1, then there were 2, and now there are 9.
So if you look at the countries with nukes, and this is what we know, or the information that they tell us, but it could be more, Countries with nukes, of course, you got the USA, Babylon the Great. You got Russia, the Bear. You got the UK, Britain. You got France. You got Moab, China, India, Iran, Pakistan. All right, North Korea. And then you got the Holy Land. Or Amalek, man. Okay, and they really don't want Persia to be on that list. Okay, so which I believe Persia already has them, or if not, then they're very close to possessing them. But this right here links up with your let the weak say I'm strong, because now Esau, you're not the only one that possesses nuclear missiles. Now North Korea got them, and North Korea is very really unpredictable. You can't you can't put your finger on what they're gonna do next. All right, and then what if they link up with China and Russia? All right, you see.
It is impossible not to refer to nuclear-armed North Korea as anything but a rogue nation. They do not adhere to the norms that the other nuclear-armed nations play by, and that makes them very dangerous. There are people who follow this logic of après moi le déluge, after me the flood.
After me the flood. After me the flood, which goes into what pretty much another way of saying mutually assured destruction. All right. What I was going to get that scripture in Joel 3, because it says, "Let the weak say, I'm strong." These were once nations that you would think, ain't no way in hell this nation can try to touch Babylon. But now it's very likely, right? This is Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up," right? And ultimately they're being strategically, you know, moved to form alliances so they could be brought up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? "Beat your plowshares into swords, forming instrument," right? Pretty much meaning what? Beef up your military, right? "And your pruning hooks into spears." Pruning hooks, plowshares is forming instruments. A sword and a spear is what? Killing instrument, wartime. "Let the weak say, I am strong." These were other nations that were once weak. They're strong now through what? They possess nuclear weaponry. Nations now you have to take us serious, right? "Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be awakened." That means roused up, and they are. It says the nations were angry, right? A lot of people are watching this place and they're getting ready and they're angry, they're pissed off, right? "And come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen around about," right? And Jehoshaphat meaning what? Yehoshaphat, the valley of Yahweh's judgment. "Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, for the fats overflow, for the wickedness is great," right? And that's what's coming. Ultimately, it's going to culminate in World War III, destruction of Babylon the Great, the third woe, right?
After me the flood. If I die, may everyone die.
What I would call a madman theory.
The madman theory. It's what is called a rogue launch, a bolt out of the blue attack. You can have these two superpowers, America and Russia, each have 1,700 weapons on ready for launch status. The errors that will likely happen, those variables should terrify us all. In the 90s, there was a science project between Norway and the United States to gather some data from the atmosphere. This launch was mistaken by an early warning system in Russia for an ICBM launch. This is the only known time that Russian equivalent of the football, the Shaget, was opened, which is just the razor's edge of Armageddon. And then it was determined that this was actually a reporting error and the Shaget was closed. Russia could mistake a launch, even more perilous, what I call the hole over the pole. U.S. Minuteman ICBMs have to fly over Russia to get to North Korea. Imagine in a moment of nuclear crisis saying to Russia, trust us, they're just going over you, they're not coming at you. And remember, we're talking about minutes now, because the launch has to happen before the strike hits the United States. It's called launch on warning. It's not launch after we absorb a nuclear attack. Launch on warning is...
Yep. So let's look at this. This is something called from, wait, close this, close this, close this, close this. Okay. What U.S. All right. What is Russia's dead man's hand or dead hand? Right? This is from the Pulitzer Prizes, right? It says the dead hand, the untold story of the Cold War arms race and its dangerous legacy, right? It says during the Cold War, world superpowers amassed nuclear arsenals containing the explosive power of 1 million Hiroshimas or Hiroshimas. The Soviet Union secretly plotted to create the dead hand, a system designed to launch an automatic retaliatory nuclear strike on the U.S. and develop a fearsome biological warfare machine. All right? President Ronald Reagan, hoping to awe the Soviets into submission, pushed hard for the creation of space-based missile defenses. Right? And Esau has what? A space force. But ain't none of that shit gonna work. So pretty much Russia, they even have it on the books. If their attacks, a missile gonna get launched anyway. All right? And so does Amalek. They have something called the Samson option. Right? The Samson option, Amalek's plan to nuke its opponents. It says on September 22nd, 1979, U.S. surveillance satellite Vela 6911 I just want the definition. Wikipedia. The Samson option, all right, is Amalek's deterrent strategy of massive retaliation with nuclear weapons as a last resort against a country whose military has invaded and or destroyed much of Amalek. All right, and you gotta think about the story of Samson. What did he do? He pretty much went in there, after he got his eyes gouged out, the Lord gave him his sight back, and he pretty much destroyed, the pillars, and, he took out, it says, I'm just read it down here. It says, according to the biblical narrative, Samson died when he grasped 2 pillars of the temple of Dagon and bowed himself with all his might, Judges 16:30. So you could go back and read that. So pretty much, they're saying that they'll take everybody out, The name is a reference to the biblical Israelite judge Samson, who pushed apart the pillars of a Philistine temple, bringing down a roof and killing himself and thousands of Philistines who had captured him. Right? So that's just like Russia's dead hand,
On warning is reckless and dangerous and should be changed.
You should ask your politicians to stop launch on warning. The American president can launch nuclear-armed missiles within minutes without consulting anyone.
That is just a recipe for disaster. But it will be argued by
and this
people.
This would be the fucking guy to do it. Excuse my French.
On the other side, if you remove that policy, then it will make a crazy dictator think he can strike the United States. So then you begin to have that circular debate that people have been having for decades. Making matters worse, what's the guarantee you can get Russia on the phone? To anyone who says that's ridiculous, of course you could. I'm going to quote former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, during the Ukraine war. It was mistakenly reported that a Russian missile had hit a NATO country, Poland. That wasn't what happened, but that's how it was reported. General Milley could not get his Russian counterpart for more than 24 hours. There was a war going on, and he couldn't get his Russian counterpart. So how does one want to just live in fantasy land thinking in the moment of crisis, one American president can get another president on the phone instantly? Once you realize, oh my God, this is all happening in seconds and minutes, not days and weeks, when does the American public know? They're going to find out when Washington, D.C. has just been annihilated. 1,600 seconds from launch to annihilation. 3 phases, really.
That equals out to minutes, right? Maybe about 5 minutes. And that links up ultimately with the prophecy of this place being took down in 1 hour, 60 minutes. Meaning it's not going to take long.
Simple. Boost phase is 5 minutes. A hot rocket exhaust on the ICBM. After 5 minutes, it enters mid-course phase, and now it will fly between 500 and 700 miles above the Earth at 15,000 miles an hour to the other side of the world. For the last 100 seconds, it will be in what's called terminal phase, which is pretty obvious what it is. It re-enters the atmosphere, the warhead detonates, and that is the end. 26 minutes and 40 seconds. And we haven't even begun to talk about
1 hour. Okay, let's get that prophecy in Revelation. That's all it's going to take, man. It's Revelation 18, which I could start from 1. I'll get to the point. Revelation 18 and 17. For in 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea still far off. All right. And in verse 18, and cried when they saw the smoke of our burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? All right, so there's other nations, man, the merchants that were, getting rich off this whore, when they see the destruction of it, they're going to start lamenting. They're going to start lamenting, all right, really from the sight, because it's going to be a horrible sight,
minutes and 40 seconds. And we haven't even begun to talk about what submarines do. A submarine can sneak up on the coast and launch a nuclear weapon in minutes. A shocking truth that no one wants to talk about. I'm going to take you to the president's briefing to get to this submarine issue. When the president is told this weapon is coming at us, it's going to be here in less than 30 minutes. You need to launch nuclear weapons in a counterattack. The football gets opened. That is the suitcase. The satchel that is constantly with the president. Inside of that is something called the Black Book. And the Black Book contains information about the nuclear triad, the weapons that are available to the president, what targets he should hit, and they've been determined based on different rogue countries that might attack the United States, and then how many people...
That's just like Trump saying, if something happens to me, or, because, you got Persia, all right? I don't really know the name of this website, but it says Trump warns Persia that it will be blown up if he's assassinated. I have very firm instructions. If anything happens, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth. Right? We know that's not going to happen because they're part of the prophecy. Actually, Babylon's going to get. That's the one that's going to get wiped. All right, wiped out.
That might attack the United States, and then how many people will die. That's basically the 3 things the president learns in those seconds before he gives the order. The Black Book is so secret, nothing has ever been leaked. It has never made its way into the public domain. A few individuals have spoken of it. A mill aide once talked about how it was like a Denny's menu. That's how he described it. And you choose, I'll have this with that and give me a that on the side. The nuclear triad is what we're getting at here. We have 400 ICBMs. We have 66 bombers. We have 14 submarines. The president can use all 3. The bombers are the only element of the triad that can be recalled. So they're almost certainly sent out first. But they will take several hours to get where they're going. And by then, this will all be over. The ICBMs, once launched, can't be recalled. They are known to be the first weapons to be used because they will involve what is called use 'em or lose 'em strategy. Because the location of our U.S. ICBMs are public domain, they will be the first targets hit by the Russians. Our submarines zooming around the oceans ready to launch. They're generally called the handmaidens of the apocalypse.
One submarine has enough nuclear weapons to essentially end life on the planet as we know it. Just one.
And because they're nuclear powered, they can just motor around without ever having to surface. You can't know where they are. For one of the first times ever, the Defense Department recently released a map. And it's just shocking when you realize how close the submarines, both Russia and China, can get to America's coast. You're talking about minutes.
They know we have
a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shores.
How could, you almost want to stutter and mutter, like, wait, what? Why do we have all the other weapons if those weapons can end the world? We can get into the wonky discussion of deterrence and mutual assured destruction. Many people have heard of the concept of MAD, mutual assured destruction. Each side would be absolutely mad to launch a nuclear weapon because it would guarantee that we would all die. After you come up with the concept of MAD, other concepts follow. First strike.
A lot of our weapons are targeting a lot of their weapons and vice versa. So whoever strikes first gets to use their weapon.
And that's when the Spirit's going to, Scripture says, thou shalt think an evil thought. That's the Most High going to put in these other nations, mainly Gog and Magog. All right? So we're close, man. This is Rev 11 and 14. It reads, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. All right. This is 2 Ezra 16, right? And verse 13. For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp and shall not miss when they begin to be shot into the ends of the world, going into the nuclear missiles, all right, that these nations possess, whether they be on submarines, whether they be on the fighter jets, crafts, okay, or whether they shot from the silo, okay, it's the modern day archers, right? For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow. His arrows that he shooteth are sharp. Modern day arrows is a nuke. We're in days where technology, knowledge has increased, and shall not miss when they begin to be shot. They're not going to miss, man. They are not going to miss. This is it, right? This is Jeremiah 51, and no. It's actually Jeremiah 50, the one I'm thinking about. Jeremiah 50 and verse 9. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, all right, and that's this place known in the media as the West, or the other nations call it the West, an assembly of great nations from the north country, right, and that's Ezekiel 38. And they shall set themselves in array against her, from thence shall she be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert, man. Experts don't miss. Experts are very precise. Okay? It really is the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. None shall return in vain. Right? I mean, it ain't going to be no duds. None of them, it's going to, man, 1 hour. Right? And, let's see. Jump down to 14. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All you that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows. For she has sinned against Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. So that's the judgment for the Most High. Put the spirit on these nations to shoot these nukes, man. Get it popping. All right, and just nuclear war, or that judgment is biblical. All right, the Lord said I will smite Egypt with plagues as before. Well, this is actually the top plague, the plague of plagues. Right, Zechariah 14 and 12. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away, and their hoofs and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. So that's going to happen from what? The nuclear destruction. Only nuclear destruction can do that, man. All right? And there it is in the scriptures. And I'll leave you with one more. So I don't know why I keep doing that. But this 2 Peter 3 and 10. All right? But the day of the Lord, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, will come as a thief in the night. A thief doesn't let you know when he's going to come break in your home. Right? That defeats the point of him being a thief. Right? In which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, nuclear destructions. And there's 3 levels of heaven. There's, on earth, where, man is given the dominion. Right now, Esau got the dominion, but it's being translated. We're in the middle, or we're in the midst of the kingdom being translated. Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that followed. Right? in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works therein shall be burned up. Nuclear destruction. Nuclear destruction. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation. Go into that word conversation. It means manner of conduct, your walk. Holy means what? Being separate from the world, meaning in the world, but not being of the world. If that makes sense. And godliness. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of the Lord, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. All right, so that's it. I don't want to make this lesson too long. Like I said, this is a 23-minute video, and it's very edifying. So if you want to go back and watch it, there it is. I pray this has brought some edification. All praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, to hopeful elect. Shalom.